Fearless family, welcome back to episode number 8. Today is a little bit of a sadder sort of story. I want to take you through my period from under 16s. The injury that I did have that set me back quite a lot. I've got a few notes here with me as well, just to make sure I've got the timing of everything right, because sometimes going through the podcast I can get a bit lost with words and those sorts of things. So wanted to take you through my under 16s journey. As I said in my last episode, if you've listened to that one, going through this sort of period of time, everything changes so differently for everybody at different times. I developed a little bit later on. I definitely grew probably at around this age, around 15, 16. I had a bit of a growth spurt, but I was definitely not filled out how I should have been, or maybe a little bit later on as well. And it was probably one of the reasons why I got moved on from the Adelaide Crows, is I wasn't physically ready to be able to handle the loads of what the AFL had to offer. I would always get through everything. I would always push myself to another level and work as hard as possible, but it was more the work outside of that to eat enough food. That was the biggest thing that held me back. But that's another different tangent. This sort of period, I started to develop some back pain towards the end of the year. Around September, October, you finish your football season and you start to pick up your summer sports. I would always pick up tennis. Tennis was my favorite sport by far. And it was a period of time there where tennis was my favorite sport, and I didn't play a winter of school footy. I played winter tennis instead, which was a pretty big decision, and I wanted to pursue tennis at that time. I didn't want to pursue footy. That didn't last too long, but it was, a period of time where tennis was my number one sport. My mum growing up used to play basketball. So basketball got introduced to us a little bit later on, and around this time was when we started playing some basketball as well. My middle brother was actually quite good at basketball. Myself wasn't very naturally gifted at basketball at all. I like to shoot around and I joined playing, but definitely not as talented as what he was at that age. And I just started to develop some back pain around there. And I don't know if it was due to the basketball, due to growing, due to tennis. Obviously, those sports have a lot of load on your joints and your back and those sorts of things. And maybe I wasn't physically ready there, and going through those different growth spurts, your body is trying to constantly adapt and change. And I sort of just left it, sort of pushed past it. I did tell mum and dad, but they just thought it was growing pains at the time. So did I. It wasn't really too bad. It would come up during basketball trainings, but would sort of just try and push through and get past as much as I could. And it eventually got to a point where laying down, standing up, I was just in constant pain, and something that I couldn't really ignore anymore. And I got taken to a doctor, we got an MRI, and I come back with stress fractures in my back, in my lower back. So I think it was L5. I had 2 holes in the middle of my back, basically, that I got told would never recover because I've pushed past that level of it being able to heal. And I pushed through that pain, which I thought was the right thing to do, but obviously looking back, maybe not. So I've got 2 permanent holes just sitting in my opposite sides of my back that will never heal. They'll never get back to where they should be. However, the pain won't really come up unless I aggravate it really bad. So I've only had a couple of experiences where it has started to get a little bit sore since then, and that was around 16. I'm now 23. So a couple of experiences over 7 years is not too bad, but at the time, I was, just in a heap of pain. Sitting down at school for literally longer than probably 15 minutes was a real big struggle. I remember just in class lying on the ground because that was something that felt comfortable. It was a hard surface. It was flat and it just felt comfortable. Standing for long periods. I remember driving my brothers with mum in the car as well to football training, and my back would be sore, and it was a nightmare. And I think the part that was more of a nightmare was not knowing how to recover from it. I went to a Adelaide Crows doctor because Dad had that contact there, so we saw him at his clinic, and he was like, okay, you got to rest for the next 6 weeks. And I was like, 6 weeks? That is a bloody long time. Like, what am I going to do with myself? Like, doing literally no exercise for 6 weeks. I just had to have complete rest to try and reduce the inflammation, reduce the pain that I was getting. And so I did that for 6 weeks. I literally did nothing. I did schoolwork and that was about it. And I was like, Jesus, I'm going to be that far behind in the fitness side of things when I do come back. But the pain didn't really change too much. And that was the frustrating part. Went back to the doctor again and he was like, okay, you got to rest for another 6 weeks. And I was like, you are kidding me. Like, what is going on? Went back to the same Crows doctor. He's like, another 6 weeks resting. So I was like, oh, gee whiz, that's 12 weeks now of resting. So I did that 6 weeks. And at the end of that 6 weeks, nothing had really changed. And I was like, what is going on? This is ridiculous. Like, do we get a different opinion? Because I can't rest for another 6 weeks. I can't go back to him and say nothing's really changed. And he just tells me to rest for another 6 weeks. So then from there, Dad was coaching at Port Adelaide at the time and went to, no, I don't think he was coaching there at the time, but we still had the connection there. I think he'd just finished up there and we still had the connection with the Port Adelaide doctor, physio. And his suggestion was to, yes, there's going to be a little bit of pain there, but to just push through because it will get better. And I was like, wow. So I've been told from one perspective to rest for 12 weeks and continue to keep resting. Another doctor from a different club has told me to push through. Like, what do I do? So started doing a little bit of Pilates sort of stuff to try and help strengthen up around that sort of area. And that was going okay. I found it really, really boring because no offense to any of the people that do Pilates, but I was doing like the clinical sort of one where you'd go in and everyone would have their own sort of issues. And I would always be with a lot of older sort of people. And I just found it really, really boring. Went back to the Crows doctor and he told me, number one, I should rest for another 6 weeks for whatever reason. And we're like, nah, it's been way too long now. What are the other options? The other options was to go to a back specialist, send him the scans and see what he says. So we booked in an appointment with him. I remember going to him and he looked at the scans, asked a couple of questions and he was like, go for it. And I was like, what? He was like, go for it. Go start training again. Do whatever you have to do. Yes, there is a little bit of pain there now, but once you start to get past the first couple of weeks of getting back into training, things will start to like go away. Like you've rested long enough now and nothing has changed. And you're going to have 2 permanent holes in your back. However, you can start to do things. And I was like a little bit lost at the time. I was like, what is going on? Like this, I don't know if this is the right information. He's a back specialist. Like, of course he's going to know, but at the time I'd just been told so many different things. I just wasn't sure what to do. And that night, I think we had football training and I don't know if I trained that night, but the next training session, I was out there, I was doing different stuff. I was obviously doing basic sort of stuff, just sort of straight line running and those sorts of things to get back into it. Not much change of direction because of the load it put through my back, but started to get back into it. And yeah, from there just went full steam ahead and pretty much played that. Did I play that full season? I played that full season. No, I didn't because I was coming back. My apologies. I didn't play that full season. I was coming back. I came back around halfway through the year. And I was doing a bit of running and those sorts of things. The coaches, I remember saying, are you okay? Like, you don't look like you're running that well. And I was like, oh, I felt like I was running as normal. For whatever reason, I was lucky enough, because this was my under 16s year, I was lucky enough to get selected in the state squad. And I was like, I don't know how, but we're going to take it. And I remember speaking to the coach at the time. He's like, we saw enough of you the year before. We wanted to pick you in the squad and give you the chance to make it. And I was like, wow, that's incredible. So my first game back was a half of footy against a college school back in Adelaide and played okay. Like wasn't too bad. I was absolutely gassed and I was cooked. Only played a half of footy, like 2 20-minute quarters or 2 25-minute quarters. but it was just so good to get back out there. And then from there, played through the state carnival, and again, sort of experienced the same level of fear, the same things that were holding me back that I had experienced from under 12s, 13s, 14s, 15s. And that was just that fear of judgment, just wanting to fit in for whatever reason. So again, if you listen to my last podcast, awesome, well done. Listen to this again and let this be your reminder, because it's going to hold you back so much. And I do believe it held me back. It's held my development back and it still does to this day. And I am getting better and better, but just go out there, play your game, just have fun, take the pressure off, take the anxiety away, just focus on having fun, focus on getting around your teammates and those sorts of things. And there's a story that I'll share with that later on as the podcast goes along, but I've struggled with it for so long. I don't want anyone else to struggle with it as well. I've got a client back in Adelaide that he does the exact same thing, and I remember coaching him back in Adelaide and was just trying to tell him, just relax, just don't do as much training because you're taking the fun away from it. Like, you think about when you grow up playing at 8 years old, 9 years old, you play for the fun of it. You don't play you're not focusing on getting drafted and getting the most amount of disposals and those sorts of things. You're just going out there, having fun, having a laugh. That's what it's all about. Like, that's what you need to get back to when you're a little bit older. Yes, there's different things that you have to focus on with tactics and strategies and different running patterns and those sorts of things, and you get smarter as you go along, but the biggest thing is just to enjoy it and have fun. And that's, I know, when I'm playing my best footy. So that's the message for today. Go out there, have fun, whether that is your sport, whether that's your career, your business. Go out, enjoy it. Enjoy the process of getting better. Enjoy the process of failure, because you're going to learn so much more from that than winning and being the best at everything all the time. So hopefully you got something out of that. Enjoy your day and stay fearless.